Cavalcade. A panorama of speed, color, drama, and excitement. The American Sports Cavalcade.
Association's Winston Drag Racing Series has enjoyed its most sensational start ever. The first 4 races chock full of surprises. The 5th takes place today here in Memphis, Tennessee at Memphis Motorsports Park. Now, a lot of talk so far this year has concerned the lack of performance by one team, Kenny Bernstein. Kenny has won the Winston Funny Car Championship the past 4 years, but this year is yet to find the winner's circle and has only made one final round. But yesterday, Kenny and crew chief Dale Armstrong proved to everybody that they are back on the performance track. On a racetrack considered slippery by some, borderline treacherous by others, Bernstein set the all-time NHRA national record for the breed at 5.25 seconds on a spectacular run. Talk about an attitude adjustment to the king of funny cars. When you're struggling to win an unprecedented 5th Winston title, every point you can earn is badly needed. And Kenny, you just may have picked up an extra 200, a brand new national record, 525.
Well, I sure hope so. We sure can use it. It doesn't hurt. Like you said, it's going to be a tough year with these guys running as good as they do. So it takes everything we can do. But Dale and the crew just did a phenomenal job.
Tell us about the pass itself. It smoked the tires on the dry burnout, but not when you left the starting line.
No, it smoked them hard, and then, had to apply some brake to it and get after that. But it carried the front end really hard. Through at least, half the racetrack, it was off the ground, and I kind of got out of shape once. I said, I don't know if it's going to be able to stay with it because it's off the ground in front. You can't steer them. Then it settled down. The wind got the front end on the ground, and it just started making it, and I drove it way, way deep. I even heard it because I drove it so deep, but, it was a good run. You weren't going to lift no matter what unless it just crossed up.
It was a great run.
Well, I appreciate it. It's great to be here.
After the applause had died for the new record, Kenny Bernstein and his lady Cheryl Johnson savored the moment quietly. Okay, for more on the other nitro-burning category in NHRA drag racing, Top Fuel Eliminator, here's Brock Yates.
Well, Steve, that, of course, is one of the most recognizable and respected logos in all of NHRA competition. That is Gary Ormsby out of Northern California, who now leads in the Top Fuel point standings. He's won 2 major events so far, and here at the Mid-South Nationals is the top qualifier. He and his crew chief, Lee Beard, are off to a great start. And earlier, I asked Gary about his season so far and what was coming up for him. Obviously, you must be looking forward to a very good season. Does that in any way change the way you go racing from race to race from here on in?
Well, no, this is really something we've been trying to do for several years, and I think it takes a while just before a team gels. And we've got the same crew we've had for about 4 years. Lee's been with me 5 out of the 6 years that I've been on the tour. And everything's just really coming together for us. I mean, everybody wants to do this every year. It's just kind of happening for us now.
Gary and his crew are currently in the staging lanes getting ready for the second round of competition here at Memphis, as is the 3rd member of our broadcast team, the legend, perhaps the greatest drag racer of them all, Big Daddy Don Garlitz, who's there to evaluate the competition. Don, is there anything special we should be looking for in this round?
Well, Brock, even though Gary Ormsby was the low qualifier, the big news out of round 1 is Darrell Gwynn and his superb 5-second flat run. That's a new Memphis track record, but more importantly, that is a backup run for a new national ET record, presently held by Eddie Hill at 4.99. Darrell can actually take that record all the way down to 4.96 with that 5-second flat backup. The fans here at Memphis would just be jubilant to have both of those fuel records here at Memphis, to say nothing of what it would be like in the Darrell Gwynn camp. On the funny car side of the ladder, Kenny Bernstein continues to dominate the class, but he will be opposed by Tom Hoover and Mark Oswald, who have been running very strong and very steady through this entire event. Well, Eddie Hill is firing for Top Fuel round number 2. Steve Evans?
You're right, Big Daddy. It is time for action in top fuel at the NHRA AutoZone Castrol GTX Mid-South Nationals. And this is Eddie Hill. Now, Eddie is one driver, Don, who does not want to see Darrell Gwynn set that record because it would erase his own mark of 4.99 seconds. And as you just saw, again, he'll be carrying our Diamond Sports onboard camera. Eddie Hill, former boat racer, now championship drag racer out of Wichita Falls, Texas, and his crew chief, Terry Fuzzy Carter. There's none tougher and none willing to work any harder than that man with the red beard. Now, earlier in round number 1, it was Eddie Hill up against the defending Winston Top Fuel champion, Joe Amato of Old Fort, Pennsylvania, and his crew chief, Tim Richards, and here's how that race unfolded.
You'll notice over there, Steve, that Eddie Hill has that big blower scoop on the car, the one that he had in Pomona when he did that giant wheel stand. He must figure that that's giving him some extra power, but Amato gets away from him. Amato smokes the tires, and Hill gets a reprieve.
That's right. This was earlier in the day in round number 1. You can see how happy Eddie Hill was. At one point, he thought he was done for the day. Now, in second round action, his opponent is Pat Dakin of Dayton, Ohio. Dakin coming back after 6 years out of the Top Fuel Wars, but with the same crew chief and team owner he enjoyed so long ago, Gary Rupp. Pat Dakin earlier in round number 1 raced Gene Snow.
Now, Gene Snow should have won this race, but as you can see, he smoked the tires early, giving the race to Dakin.
But Dakin split an engine open and completely oiled down the far or right-hand lane. Brock Yates is with him in the staging lane.
Steve, I'm with Pat Dakin, who normally would be a happy man having beaten Gene Snow in the first round, but it was a costly victory, and I understand, Pat, that your days are limited here.
Yes, we're through for today. We lost a motor yesterday, and this one was pretty severe, so that's all we've got left, and we've got to go home and rebuild and come back again.
Oh, it's a terribly disappointing way to go out of here, having won it, and I'm sure that if you could have come up with any kind of a fix, you'd at least roll to the line.
I guarantee you that. We certainly would have been back if we had anything to put back in the car.
Destroyed the engine completely?
It's pretty much gone.
Well, we're very sorry, but we know we'll see you down the road again.
That's quite right.
Thanks, Pat.
You're welcome.
So what a break for Eddie Hill. He will waltz into the semifinals. All he has to do is get from the starting line to the finish line.
But he's going to run it as hard as he can, Steve, because he wants to get lane choice. Look at there. He backs off. He must have lost traction, and now he's coasting down the line. He's got the win, but he's not going to have lane choice.
Well, lane choice, Don, as you well know, goes to the car with the quicker ET from the previous round. And with that E45, probably it won't be Eddie Hill. Let's go to Brock Yates.
Steve, I'm with Fuzzy Carter, Eddie Hill's crew chief, and you couldn't have been too pleased with that.
Well, we just got it back together. We was close getting up here and didn't get to make my real exact clutch adjustments. So we knew we had a single, so we figured we'd just try to get down through there, and if it went, and we can make some changes for next round and try to make it go.
Good luck. Thanks, Fuzzy.
Lost lane choice, though.
Okay.
Oh, that was on Fuzzy's mind, wasn't it? Just as we thought. All right, it's time for the next race in round number 2, a pair of Northern California standouts. This man, Gary Ormsby, the Winston points leader, up against an old rival, but still a good friend, Frank Bradley.
And, you know, Frank Bradley had lane choice, so he has put Ormsby in the far lane. Now, a lot of cars have smoked their tires in this lane, so it's going to be a test of whether Beard has his clutch set properly or not.
Well, Don, so far this season, Gary Ormsby has been running so well, and Lee Beard has done such a good job on that setup, I would imagine he'll be close. Now let's go down to the other end with Steve.
Well, Eddie, you learned something, but not what you wanted to learn. This car doesn't want to go down the left lane either.
No, it doesn't. I thought we had that deal plenty safe enough to get down that lane. I'm really mystified now. All weekend up till now, we couldn't make enough power to go anywhere, and since we went back to our 493 combination, which is what we did for first round, we hadn't been able to settle it down enough to get down here again. Feels like last year.
Lady Luck has been on your side so far.
Yeah, at least we got through 2 laps. Well, we got LaHaye, I guess, coming up, and he's got lane choice, so we'll have to see what happens. Now, it looks like I'm in big trouble.
Eddie Hill is already looking forward to Dick LaHaye. LaHaye has some competition himself.
He sure does, Steve. He faces Lori Johns in this round, and believe me, the way she's running, she's no pushover. As we watch Frank Bradley getting ready to stage in his upcoming race against Gary Ormsby.
And Frank Bradley may just have a little blood in his eye. Yep, there it is right there, because Gary Ormsby defeated Frank in the finals of the Winter Nationals earlier this year. And Frank's crew chief, Kim Connerty, he remembers that too.
Well, Steve, he faces Gary Ormsby, who continues on a roll. He qualified #1 here. Had an easy go of it in the first round, beating Robert Reel. Now, his crew chief, Lee Beard, of course, one of the best in the business.
The performance of Gary Ormsby's top fuel racer last season was truly remarkable, but they lost a few key races due to slower reaction times. Even though he ran quicker, he got beat. So as crew chief Lee Beard said, we've got to do something to help this car leave the starting line quicker. There is something under this towel. They admit to that. We don't know what it is. They won't allow us to show it to you because that would be showing it to the competition, and every kid on the block would have one by next week. NHRA has taken a private look at it and say it is legal. It is not electronic, which is illegal. Whatever it is, it's deadly.
Don Garlitz, any idea about the secret device?
I think, Brock, it's some kind of a device that speeds up the speed in which the throttle pedal speed opens the butterflies on the injector.
Well, there is Ormsby in the far lane, Bradley in the near lane. Ormsby has to be thinking about traction, Bradley about Ormsby's device. It is Ormsby out front by a mile. It is Gary Ormsby with a tremendous advantage off the starting line, defeating Bradley with a beautiful 5.06 elapsed time at a tremendous speed, 286.
As we had see at the start, Ormsby gets out immediately. Whatever that device is, it certainly does work, because by the time they went by the Christmas tree, he already had the car completely in front of Frank. And even though Frank Bradley ran a 5:10, the 5:06 coupled with that 4.44 reaction time was unbelievable.
Well, Gary, to attack the suspect lane, as you just did, with a 5:06, shows me you have tremendous confidence in this car and crew.
There's no question about it, Steve. I don't know how many runs we've made with this car, but is yet to smoking the tires. I'll knock on wood, but it has not smoked the tires one time yet.
Okay, now looking at this tire, what do you see, Gary? Does it tell you anything?
Well, it's not blistered or anything. It's it looks pretty good, really. It's running. You can see there's about an inch on each side, and that means it's running right through here, and that's a good footprint right there.
Good job.
Thank you.
And run, by the way, on a lane that was suspect up to now. So we got some even competition coming up as Darrell Gwynn preps for his run against Hank Endres here at the AutoZone Castrol GTX Mid-South Nationals.
We're back at Memphis Motorsports Park, and this is the pit of funny car race Don the Snake Perdone. You'll notice the clutches off the back of that engine. That's because they ruined that all-important unit in round one, defeating R.C. Sherman. The Snake could have some big problems getting that car absolutely right for the second round. Right now, we're still in the second round of Top Fuel before a huge crowd here at the AutoZone Castrol GTX Mid-South Nationals. I'm Steve Evans, along with Brock Yates and Big Daddy Don Garlitz. And Don, this is a good matchup.
Yes, it is. Hank Endres is running real good, and Darrell Gwynn is running even better. He had that 5-second flat run earlier, and he's looking to set a new national record, if at all possible, to pad his points.
That's right. A new record pays 200 bonus Winston points towards the season-end championship. We saw Kenny Bernstein already accomplish that. Darrell Gwynn, well, he won the Gator Nationals earlier this year in Gainesville, Florida. He loved that in front of his home state fans. His crew chief is one of the real wizards in this sport, Ken Benny. He can do just about anything with metal. They're up against Hank Endres. Now, Endres is truly a veteran from Pennsville, New Jersey, and the crew chief on this team is Rob Flynn.
Well, Don, what does a basic underdog like Endres do against a guy who's running so strong as Gwynn in a situation like this?
Well, on paper, Brock, it would look like Gwynn would be an easy winner of this round, but as you know, the track surface has been a little tricky. It's going to be a question of who gets traction and who doesn't.
So Darrell Gwynn, the possibility of a new national record here, but his mind right now, I'm sure, concentrated totally on beating that man over there, Hank Endres.
Endres is away first. But it's the power of the big gold car that produces a victory. Darrell Gwynn 5:05 to a game. Hank Endres at 5.11 seconds. Brock is at the starting line with the winning crew chief.
Okay, Ken Benny, you got crew chief. Just a quick word.
We just tried to take it a little easy to try and keep from smoking the tires to get by one round because we knew he's really tough.
Congratulations.
We needed it.
That's what's on everyone's mind, smoking the tires. And you control that with the clutch in these contemporary top fuel dragsters.
Beautiful start by Hank Endres. but it was for naught. Little smoke off of Gwen's tires, but the car makes a tremendous move. Notice the black tracks following the car. They had that clutch set right on the ragged edge. Any more, and they would have smoked, and Injuries would have been the winner.
And now let's go to Steve.
Well, Darrell, that one almost got away from you, my friend.
Yes, it did, Steve. And dear, there was some smoke coming off the rear tires. I could feel it, and saw Hank right beside me, but still can't believe we got the win line.
He ran a great 511. You ran an even better, a sensational 505.
I'll tell you, that's pretty surprising with the smoke coming off the tires and shaking. I saw him pull up right next to me, but tires were real close to breaking loose, and 505 gives us lane choice over Gary Ormsby, so we're looking forward to being in the semifinals.
We're looking forward to watching.
Thank you.
Well, with the way that car's hooked up right now, it's going to be a wild one. Should be interesting. Right now, though, we've got to race the one that Eddie Hill forgot about. Don Garlett, that is Lori John, the young Texas lady that's run so strong this season, and she is going up against Dick LaHaye.
And actually, Brock, she qualified better than LaHaye in the qualifying. However, going into this round, she does not have lane choice, so LaHaye could possibly have a little advantage.
Dick LaHaye from Lansing, Michigan, the Winston champion in 1987, just won the Southern Nationals. His crew chief is Kim LaHaye, voted crew chief of the year last year by the Sport of Drag Racing, up against this pretty lady. She's from Corpus Christi, Texas. Her name is Lori Johns, and her crew chief, very talented Larry Meyer. Formerly worked for Gene Snow, funny car racer Eric Reed, and he has got this machine running better than anyone expected this early in their careers together.
Look at the confidence of Lori John. She's setting up on the line, just waiting for a LaHaye to come in.
Well, she won't have to wait very long. LaHaye likes to stage last anyway. You see him building up the pressure in the brake so he can hold this 4,000 horsepower against the clutch on the starting line. Dead even at half track. LaHaye by an open car length at 5:08 to Lori John's 5:19. Lori John's crew maybe just a little too conservative. On the starting line is Brock Yates.
Kim, 5:08, you got to be happy.
Yes, we're real happy. We're just trying to stick with a 10, a high O, and it looked like it worked out pretty good.
All right, keep it up.
We're going to try, thanks.
Okay.
So Dick LaHaye, that's his sixth consecutive win line in NHRA competition.
Lori Johns takes a slight advantage off the starting line, as you can see, but it doesn't last very long. LaHaye had his clutch engine combination just perfect, and Lori Johns' car begins to fall back. Obviously, they took too much clutch out for that lane, thinking that it was going to smoke the tires.
So that concludes the second round of top fuel action here, setting up the semifinals. And as he predicted, Eddie Hill will face Dick LaHaye, although LaHaye, of course, has lane choice. That'll be a good one. In the other pairings, top qualifier Gary Ormsby faces young Darrell Gwynn. Gwynn with lane choice. Now let's go to Steve.
Well, Eddie Hill proved to be a prophet as he had you defeating Lori Johns. He was absolutely right, but it wasn't easy.
No, it wasn't. It was, we had a pretty good race a couple weeks ago, too, down in Atlanta. And it,
5:06, a good steady elapsed time right there.
Well, that's what we was looking for. Just, we're kind of tiptoeing through this race, you know. We went out in the qualifying and smoked the tires, and that really put us behind, and now we're just going to keep seeing what happens here.
We're seeing 5:05s and 5:06s. Driving is going to be critical.
Very much so. Very much so.
Well, we're getting ready for second round action of funny cars as Kenny Bernstein gets suited up. We'll be back with more of the AutoZone Castrol GTX Mid-South Nationals right after this.
Well, few things will stir up a bunch of drag racing fans more than the sight of nitro-burning funny cars rolling out onto the starting line. I'm Steve Evans along with Big Daddy Don Garlett and Brock Yates. Welcome back to Memphis Motorsports Park. Well, there's a young man a lot of this crowd is riding with, Tony McClelland, the rookie from Oakland, California. If you've been watching carefully, I don't have to tell you that Tony didn't have lane choice. He wouldn't be in the far side if he did. Ed McCullough has that honor, and McCullough, the winner of the Gator Nationals this year, has his gold car in the near lane. But from a tremendous elapsed time we saw with Gary Ormsby and some other smoke-free runs, you have to wonder if that far lane maybe isn't just about as good as the near lane.
Yeah, I think, Steve, it was marginal in round number 1. But after round 1, I don't think it's any difference.
Well, here's a man that can master any kind of surface. He's Ed, the Ace McCullough, out of Hemet, California, driving for the Larry Minor team with this experienced crew chief, Bernie Federley. They qualified number 7 at a 5:41. And this is about the best day Tony McClelland of Hayward, California has ever enjoyed in drag racing. Of course, he hasn't been around all that long. And Wayne Dupuis from Louisiana is one of the reasons why. He's the crew chief.
Now, in round number 1, McClelland met the current points leader, Bruce Larson, and that was a bit of a surprise, Don Garlitz.
Right off the line, Larson smoked the tires. He should have been an easy winner. This will definitely hurt him in the Winston points chase.
It's the second race in a row that Bruce Larson has gone out in the first round. He's seeing that points lead, which was significant, starting to be eroded a bit, and Ed the Ace McCullough hopes to take advantage of that. McCullough won the Gator Nationals earlier this year, but not in a very fine fashion. He had a lot of luck going for him. He'd like to win one decisively.
Remember, Steve, he won the Gator Nationals after he had almost broken on the starting line, but then Larson crossed the center line and was eliminated, giving McCullough the win.
And that was the last final round Bruce Larson has seen. They're off. Tony McClelland was ahead at half track, even further until the engine expired. McCullough barely nips him at the wire. 5:55 to a 5:60. Brock?
5:55, got to be pleased, I would imagine.
Well, we made it plenty soft to get down the track. We were a little concerned the track might deteriorate in the heat, but we got a little softer than we wanted to drop the cylinder, so we'll have to, it looks like we have a bit of a clutch problem, so we'll probably have to work in the clutch this round, but I think we're not in too bad shape. We'll see how it comes down.
Good job. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, there you hear the instant analysis by Ed McCullough's crew chief, Bernie Federley. Don, what do you think taking a look at the video?
Well, young Tony McClelland makes a beautiful start, and the horsepower's there, and he just pulls right out in front of Ed McCullough, and it looks like he's just going to train Linty. But something begins to happen to Tony's car. You can see that touch of white smoke coming out of the back. If that's oil under the tires, and McCullough pulls to the wind.
Well, 3.5s proved to be a winning hand for the Ace. You got him, but just barely. What a drag race.
Well, I don't know what run. I don't think it run that good.
5:55.
Yeah, well, we were sort of pressed. We were the next to the last pair in the first round, and we were the first pair the next round. We were pressed for time. We didn't take the clutch out of this thing, and we thought it was okay, but when I went up there to stage the thing to make the burnout, the clutch was not right, and we got real lucky. I mean, he was out there 2 miles on me, and I mean, finally when the stages came in about half track and started to come, I didn't know if I'd catch him or not, but we lucked out.
Catch him you did.
Well, we'll take it. Thanks, Steve.
Boy, everybody thinks about engines when it comes to drag racing, but it's the clutch that increasingly becomes the key component. All right, that's the king, Kenny Bernstein, getting ready to go against Tom Hoover, and it should be a good matchup, Don.
Notice the dry hop. That's a direct indication that Bernstein is one of the few cars with a 2-speed transmission in his car. Almost all the funnies are high gear now, but he tests that low gear start to see if it's going to smoke the tire. That gives him an idea whether to use that special braking system they have installed on these cars now.
And that was a smoke-free dry burnout, so Bernstein looking good. His opponent, Tom Hoover, who has been born again, really, performance-wise by the high gear setup. He qualified well at a 5:36. His crew chief is his father, George, well into his 80s and as spry as they come. Kenny Bernstein, what can you say? He's won the last 4 Winston championships based out of Orange, California. His crew chief, as good as there is in motor racing, Dale Armstrong. And they have qualified number 1 for the first time in quite a while.
Steve, you said earlier that Tom Hoover's been doing real well with his high gear. That's because him and his father ran a high gear dragster for years and years. This was, I mean, back in the ancient days of drag racing. So this high gear setup is nothing new to them.
No, and it certainly has produced some final laps times. Tom Hoover in the far lane. I think the concern about that lane maybe is starting to go away a bit. I think you can have some confidence and step down on the pedal hard. They're off. Oh, and just when I say that they both lose traction. Kenny Bernstein recovers first, back onto the throttle. Dale Armstrong says, boy, we lucked out on that one. Down on the starting line to have a talk with Armstrong over what appeared at first to be a losing run is Brock Yates. Brock?
Not exactly the most perfect run, but it was a winner.
Yeah, it was. I'll say it wasn't perfect. We were very lucky on that one. Very lucky. Smoked the tires, done a wheel stand, then he gets on the wheelie bars, smokes them again. Kenny had enough moxie there to get back in it and save us, so.
Well, you made the next round. We'll see you then.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, as big as Dale Armstrong is on computers and things, right there he's very grateful to his driver, car owner Kenny Bernstein. Here is Darrell Gwynn back in the pits, personally working on the fuel injection system on his top fuel dragster.
But he's talking to Lenny McClelland, the clutch master, and you can bet they're talking about clutches.
That's right, get the fuel system and the clutch to work together. His opponent in the semifinals, well, that'll be Gary Ormsby, and this crew just putting the supercharger back onto that engine. Stay with us for more from Memphis.
We're back at Memphis Motorsports Park for more of the AutoZone Castrol GTX Mid-South Nationals. Funny car action in the second round continues, but first, let's go to Steve Evans.
You know, judging by all the mail we get, there's a whole new generation of drag racing fans, and we like to think part of that is because of our television coverage. I mean, look at these grandstands. They're absolutely packed, and you ought to see the pit area. You can hardly move over there. Everybody having a great time. And a lot of these fans are hungry for more knowledge about the sport, technical data, more about the racers, or how to become a racer themselves. You know how you learn about this sport? You get National Dragster 48 weeks a year in your very own mailbox. The only way you get it is by joining the National Hot Rod Association. Now, there's a host of other benefits, but this is by far the most important one. And there's a number on your screen you can call and join NHRA right now. And if you do it right now, they'll include a copy of the multi-award-winning home video, Decade of Thrills, hosted by yours truly and Don the Snake Perdome. Now, Decade of Thrills originally sold for more than this special membership price, so do it now and get this every week. National Dragster, the Bible of the drag racing sport.
Well, here's a matchup you'll read about. Mark Oswald versus John Force. And Don Garlitz, these guys, I would imagine, are just about dead even.
They certainly are. They come into this round with a 541 for John Force and a 538 for Oswald. Now, that gives Oswald a lane choice. But remember, these lanes have become very even.
Mark Oswald qualified number 4, as you said, Big Daddy, at 5:36. He beat Eric Reed in round number 1. The crew chief, well, there's none with more experience, that's for sure. Leonard Hughes from Houma, Louisiana, up against John Force, the man with more energy than all the rest of these guys put together, it seems. And his crew chief, Austin Coyle, another crafty guy who has won 2 Winston championships himself with the old Chi-Town Hustler. But it has so far been a miserable season for both of these superstars. Neither has won a race.
Now, the tension mounts as they carefully bring these cars into stage because one goes ahead and one goes to the trailer.
It's a good start. Both cars moving around a bit, and Force breaks down. Something happens to John Force. Mark Oswald goes to the semifinals at 5.40 seconds, 259 miles per hour. Back at the starting line is Brock Yates with Mark Oswald's car owner.
Well, Paul Candice, a good pass of 540. Are you pleased with that?
Yeah, it's a little too soft leaving the starting line. We need to step it up next time. Got a little scared with smoke the tires, so we'll get after it next pass.
Good job. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Paul Candice of the famed Candies and Hughes team, legends in drag racing. Let's take one more look, Big Daddy, at this race with John Force.
Look at John Force take the advantage at the starting line, but it's for naught as he begins to experience some sort of mechanical failure. You see the oil come out from under the car, creating that plume of smoke, and Paul Candice's car goes on for the win.
All right, more round 2 action. The winningest funny car driver of them all, Don the Snake Perdome, against Art Hendy, who has lane choice because of Perdome's problems. Now let's go to Steve.
Well, John, we were just about to write your name on the line that says semifinals, but it just wasn't to be.
Well, if we didn't have bad luck, we wouldn't have any, it looks like, but it was out there. My guy said I had a little bit of an oil leak on the start line, but she was trucking right down through there, and I hung on, and I never seen Oswald, and all of a sudden, motor come up, she was parked. She broke, evidently, something.
Something in the drivetrain?
Something in the drivetrain, which leads to something in the checkbook. You know how that is.
Oh, yeah.
It's a killer.
Sorry to see you out, John.
All right, Don the Snake Perdome getting ready to go against Art Hendy. Had enormous clutch problems, a lot of time in the pits getting ready for this race. Barely made it. Now let's go to Steve with Mark Oswald.
Well, John Force was counting his money, but you picked his pocket.
Well, I'm just glad. We've had trouble getting into these late rounds, but the car looks pretty good. We got a little bit too greedy that time. It was real close. I mean, it lost a lot of ground in the middle, spinning the tires, so hopefully we can calm that down.
The weather has gotten hotter, the track a little greasier, it would appear.
Yeah, that's what it appears. The first round, our 38 was safe, and it looked like you could go a lot quicker, but then when we attempted to, it got worse, so the tracks went away a little.
In the semis.
Thank you.
Well, Don Garlitz, Paul Candice told us the clutch was a little soft. Mark Oswald says he had too much. What do you think? Who do you believe?
I bet they're going to believe the computer tape when they pull it out of that machine.
Well, that tells you why Paul Candice doesn't twist the wrenches on that car. Don Prudhomme versus Art Hendy. Don Prudhomme, the first funny car driver into the teens, a 5:19 this year at Houston. His crew chief, a young man from the San Fernando Valley, Mike Clover, California boy. He is up against Art Hendy, and people keep saying it's an upset. When Hendy beats somebody, he has beaten the best all year. I think he has proven his right to potentially win a title. And another man starting to earn some respect is his crew chief, Chuck Worsham. All right, the snake in the bar lane where Art Hendy put him. Remember, Hendy had lane choice. He ran better in the preceding round. Prudhomme with a new clutch. This is a very unpredictable combination right now, Don.
Yeah, Prudhomme was just lucky to be here.
It is Prudhomme with a huge advantage. It is Don Prudhomme with the best elapsed time of the second round. 5:37, 268 miles per hour. The snake and his crew chief, Mike Clover, hit it right on. Brock?
Mike, a 5:37, are you pleased?
Well, it's an outstanding run for us. We've been fighting and fighting and fighting. You have no idea how hard it is. It's been a tremendous race. Kenny's got extra points. He set the national record. We've had a tremendous amount of trouble, and I got to get down the end and make sure everything's okay. Thank you.
All right, congratulations.
Yeah, the snake does get a little cranky if he's left down there by himself for too long. In the semifinals, it will be Don Prudhomme with lane choice, a brilliant 5:37 in the, quote, bad lane up against Mark Oswald.
The other pair, Ed McCulloch versus Kenny Bernstein, both of them needed a little bit of luck to get here. Now let's go to Steve with Don Prudhomme.
No question, Don Prudhomme hit the setup. That is the quickest run of the quarterfinals run at 5:37. The car left lazy. It needed to, and then it trucked.
Yeah, that's right, Steve. That's what we have to do here. You know, we've been really struggling a lot with it, and it just needed to roll off the start line. We're not interested in trying to run hard on the start line.
Visually, you could see the car move about half track.
Yeah, I sure could. Inside the car, too, it really took off towards the end. It was just a good run. That's what we need to do.
It was indeed a good run.
Thanks, Steve.
So the snake will face Mark Oswald in the semifinals as we go back to the pit area where Kim LaHaye continues to work on her dad's top fuel car. He'll face Eddie Hill in the semifinals.
I'm Steve Evans, along with Big Daddy Don Garlitz and Brock Yates, as we return to the NHRA AutoZone Castrol GTX Mid-South Nationals in Memphis, Tennessee. There you see the Pro Stock car of Don Beverly as he heats the tires, electrically blocking up those front brakes to get them spinning hard, releasing it and going out over the starting line. In the near lane, his opponent, who is the talk of the Pro Stock Wars. That is the Dodge driven by Darrell Alderman, the first Chrysler product to win a Pro Stock title since 1979. He won the Gator Nationals, a man who can drive off the line as well as anybody. Don Beverly from Virginia has one national event to his credit 2 years ago, the Keystone Nationals in Pennsylvania. But Brock Yates, I have to tell you, the Dodge has been getting all the headlines.
Well, as you say, Steve, they've been out of this kind of competition for almost a decade, and suddenly they're back in it, and in a big, big way.
All right, there is Don Beverly. Now, lane choice not as critical to the Pro Stock cars. They don't make the big horsepower off the mark. Wheels in the air goes the Dodge of Darrell Alderman. Alongside him is Beverly. It is Darrell Alderman advancing to the semifinals at 7:38, 187 miles per hour. Don Beverly departs the race with a 7:50. Here's our next pair of the factory hot rods, 2,350 pounds, 500 cubic inches, a pair of 4-barrel carburetors. That is Larry Morgan in the Oldsmobile in the near lane with lane choice. Larry Morgan goes into this event with a lot of confidence. They have had the best engine combination that he and car owner Bob Pinella have ever enjoyed, and so far they have qualified in the top half of the field in every race this year. They will be up against, in the far lane, this man, Nick Nicolas from Jackson Heights, New York. He's made it to the final round himself. He knows what it's like. Larry Morgan, well, it's just a matter of time, I think, before he actually pulls off a victory. From Newark, Ohio, qualified number 4, so on paper anyway, he has a distinct advantage over Nick Nicolas. But as so often happens, Big Daddy, these races can be won right on the starting line, more than any other category.
Because they qualify so close, so often the whole field is within a tenth of a second. Look at Nicolas get that starting line advantage, but it doesn't last very long because the ET that Morgan car is able to pull out just overwhelmed Nicholas.
A 7:38. You bet. That's a fine one at 188 miles per hour. That indicates there's lots of horsepower there, a big speed. And next up comes a man with big credentials. That is Butch Leal in the bright red Firebird up against this man, Warren Johnson, perennially number 2 in this sport to Bob Glidden.
Running the factory-supported Oldsmobile Cutlass, Johnson had a couple of down years when he tried some real short wheelbase automobiles that gave some quirky handling, but right now he's back in it at second in points.
Butch Leal, on the other hand, is really quick on the starting line. Johnson knows he's going to have to deal with that. Some people tout that Leal is the quickest off the starting line in the business.
Butch Leal, Blacklick, Ohio, making a very quick comeback after a high-speed crash in Atlanta just a month ago. Warren Johnson, well, we've said all we can, I guess, about him, other than he's from Duluth, Georgia, and has to be a frustrated man, always seeming to be number 2 to a man we'll be seeing later in this round, Bob Glidden. But now it's time for Leal and Johnson and a pair of General Motors products to square up here in the second round of Pro Stock Eliminations. Leal appeared to be away first. He has left a red light on the starting line. He tried to anticipate the start. His wheels moved before the green light circuit was complete, and he will go back to the pits with a time slip marked L for lose. Warren Johnson is the winner at 7.48 seconds.
To give you an idea how closely these cars are matched, that start looked pretty good, but there was definitely a red light in Leo's lane. He cut the light just a little bit too close, and he didn't really need to because he ran a better ET.
But he has no argument. The electronic I-beam never lies. So, unfortunately, he's gone. But Bob Glidden, well, he's the number 1 qualifier, and he will face Ricky Smith out of King, North Carolina, who qualified number 5. This should be a good one, Steve.
Now, Bob Glidden accomplished something very important in round number 1. He defeated Chevrolet ace Bruce Allen. And at the end of the year, you look back on some of those key races, and they can make the difference between a championship or not. Here is Glidden in the Ford Pro. Let's go on board with the 9-time Winston champion. You see Glidden getting set, his hand on the first of the shift levers he'll pull. There's third gear. There's fourth gear. Ricky Smith is right there. Oh, Glidden had to work through that one. His son Rusty reacts. A 7:33 to Ricky Smith. Very close. 7:39. Identical reaction time. That's one of the reasons Pro Stock is so popular. That kind of competition.
Ricky Smith takes a slight starting line advantage and holds on to Glidden right down the race course. But Bob Glidden always makes a lot of power in the middle of the course, and you can see him pull ahead just slightly as they approach the 1,000-foot mark on the course and pulls out the win.
Boy, that's Pro Stock racing. All right, here's how they'll stack up in the semifinals. Darrell Alderman in the Dodge will face the Ford of Bob Glidden. Glidden will have lane choice. The other half of the semis, Larry Morgan in the Oldsmobile versus another Oldsmobile driver, Warren Johnson. Larry Morgan will have lane choice, but that doesn't appear to be a big deal in Pro Stock, as it can be in this category to come. Top Fuel, as crew chief Fuzzy Carter contemplates Eddie Hill's race to come.
Well, the fans are sure having a good time here at the AutoZone Castrol GTX Mid-South Nationals as we get ready for the Top Fuel semifinals. And Don Garlitz, what can we expect?
We've been enjoying some very beautiful weather this afternoon and some exciting racing. But the real excitement is getting ready to happen right now in the semifinals. In Top Fuel, Darrell Gwynn faces Gary Ormsby with almost identical ETs, 506 to a 505. It's going to be a race of the reaction times, and don't forget that little trick device on Ormsby's throttle. In the funny car division, the old Snake came back with low ET of the round with a 537. And we know what happens when the Snake gets that close to the finals with an ET like that. He could be dangerous. In Pro Stock, we have a rematch of that famous Gainesville race between Glidden and Alderman, the Ford versus the Mopar. And the Mopar firmly established itself back in NHRA championship drag racing by winning the match and going on to win the race. So Glidden is looking for a little bit of revenge this afternoon. I bet he's going to really give it a shot.
I'm sure he will, Don, as we get ready for a race that's been touted as one of the very best here. Eddie Hill versus Dick LaHaye. And LaHaye has lane choice. But believe me, all eyes are riveted on that yellow dragster of Eddie Hill and that unique bulge over the roll cage. Earlier, Steve had a look.
Our show is not 20, 20, or 60 minutes. But that doesn't mean we don't like to run across a good scoop once in a while, especially if it's the only scoop we have ever seen on a top fuel dragster. This is Eddie Hill's car, and this is the first time he has run this scoop in competition. When I first saw it, I figured, well, he's trying to get more of a ram, more of an air ram back here into the fuel injector. Eddie Hill says not exactly. A spectator gave him a picture of his car on a run when, down here, a main fuel line going to one of these pumps had come off of the pump and was spraying raw fuel straight up into the atmosphere. And by watching the path of that fuel in the photo, he could see that this was all dirty air. They weren't getting all the air possible into the injector, and here's why. The air flows over the body of the car, hits the windshield here, and was going up and completely over the wing. Of course, some was going into here, but not as much as could be, which is why now they have built this scoop and taken it clear out here, where theoretically the air will come right off of the windshield into this scoop and ram itself into the fuel injector. So all this came about as, well, a bit of poor man's wind tunnel testing.
Well, Big Daddy, you've brought more revolutionary items to this sport than anybody. What do you think?
It certainly sounds right, Brock, and I do know for a fact that the canopies, especially when we used to have the closed canopy, did drive the air up over the fuel injector.
You're riding with Eddie Hill. He's feeling about 4.5 Gs right now. It is Eddie Hill winning it. Dick LaHaye breaks a wing right in the light, a frightening occurrence.
Boy, he had his hands full. Did you see that car come off the ground?
I did. Back at the starting line is Brock with Eddie Hill's crew chief.
Talked to Eddie. He said he felt he was a real underdog, but it was a fantastic pass.
Yeah, we just kind of rolled the dice, and we did a lot of detuning on the deal. It looks like it come right around, so we're happy with the deal.
You better be. Congratulations. Super work.
Round. Thank you.
Oh, boy. Eddie Hill goes into the semifinals after a rocky start in this race. Let's again take a look at one of the most exciting and in some ways terrifying race of the day. They left the line as one. They stayed that way all the way down the racetrack.
This is the kind of drag racing that the fans love to see. Side-by-side racing, and I'm not so sure who would have won the race if it hadn't been for the fact that that wing collapsed on LaHaye's car just prior to reaching the end of the course. And then did he ever have his hands full keeping that car upright, keeping it out of the guardrail and out of Eddie Hill's lane. Did a tremendous driving job.
He sure did, and let's go to Steve.
Well, we've said it before, and I think it bears saying again. When you break a wing, as Dick LaHaye did at high speed, you've got to consider yourself fortunate if you're still right side up, Richard.
I'm telling you, I had my hands full down there. I mean, it made a couple moves right, left, and fortunately I got the shootout just at the right time, I think, and it just had me plenty concerned.
God bless those.
Thank the Lord that she's still right side up.
Indeed, God bless those parachutes. Could you have won had the wing not broken?
I'm not sure. I don't even know what it run. It shook the tires pretty hard out there, so, and he ran very well, so I don't know.
You both ran very well. Great job today.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Classic example of when aerodynamic devices work, they'll really help you. When they go away, they can really become treacherous. Worse than none at all, actually. All right, let's go to the next semifinal pairing. Gary Ormsby, quick qualifier versus Darrell Gwynn, and an excellent matchup, Don Garlitz.
Yeah, Gwynn has low ET of the eliminations, remember, with that 5-second flat. So it's going to be a real race at the starting line. Who is going to get off of that line first?
It's Ormsby in the far right lane. It's Darrell Gwynn in the near or left lane. A beautiful start. A beautiful race. It is Gary Ormsby in the quickest side-by-side matchup in NHRA history. The elapsed times for both drivers, 5.04 seconds. Darrell Gwynn cut a terrific light on the near lane. Ormsby's was even better.
The whole race was won right at the starting line. That throttle device, whatever it happens to be, Steve, is obviously working for Gary Ormsby. And that's what made the difference, because from there on, they were tied together. In fact, at one point, it looked like Darrell Gwynn might have gained on him just a little bit.
Just a bit, but not enough. So Gary Ormsby goes into the top fuel final against Eddie Hill, and he'll enjoy lane choice.
Is it what's under the towel, or is it this man, Gary Ormsby? No matter, you won it with reaction time. Identical elapsed times, you got there first, 5:04s.
Oh, great, Steve. Car must have made a pretty nice lap. It felt really good, and I wasn't sure that I'd won this race down here.
It was that close?
It was that close.
You know, your crew chief, Lee Baird, told me this morning this car will run 5.0s all day.
Yeah, he's got it dialed in right now, and it just keeps motoring right on down and winning.
Got to motor down one more time.
That's all.
All right, he is on a roll. 2 national event wins already this season. He's looking for his 3rd. All right, that is Warren Johnson's crewman. making some last-minute clutch adjustments on his Oldsmobile Cutlass. He'll face Larry Morgan in the Pro Stock semifinals.
One of the most exciting drag races of the NHRA season continues here at Memphis Motorsports Park. The NHRA AutoZone Castrol GTX Mid-South Nationals. I'm Steve Evans along with Brock Yates and Don Garland, and there in the gold car is Ed McClelland from California. In the far lane, also California-based, is Kenny Bernstein. Kenny Bernstein does not have lane choice. You'll recall in the previous round, he got very lucky. He won even though he lost traction and smoked the tires. McClelland may have a shot at Kenny Bernstein, one of the rare ones he's had. This is semi-final round action.
He certainly has him in a compromising position at this point, Steve.
Indeed, it's McCullough and Bernstein. Bernstein moves in. He stages. McCullough, the last to stage. Starter liquid debris activates the Christmas tree, and they're off. It's Bernstein in a rock. Bernstein at 542, 270 miles per hour. McCullough shuts off to just 10 seconds flat. With a relieved Bernstein crew chief is Brock.
Well, Dale Armstrong, a little bit more textbook-like than the last one, for sure.
A little bit, yeah. We calmed it down. We sure didn't want to smoke the tires, and Ed had a little bit of trouble last time and ran a little slow, so we gambled and slowed down a little bit, and it worked out for us. I hope we can step it up for the final now, because I think we'll have to.
All right, good luck.
So much thought goes into these drag racing contests. You heard Dale Armstrong say they were looking ahead, anticipating maybe McCullough doing something unpredictable, which he has done all year long, like smoking the tires. Well, here's a man who may have a handle on this race. Don Prudhomme, Granada Hills, California, low elapsed time of the previous round at 5:37.
And you know they have to be excited about that. That snake really gets racy when he gets a good ET.
He's going to have to be. He's going to face Mark Oswald. In the meantime, let's go to Steve with Kenny Bernstein.
Well, for the second time this year, Kenny Bernstein is final round bound.
Well, it's great to be back. It's been a while, believe me.
You haven't talked much.
No, we haven't talked to this area very often at all. No, it's great. Been a good day so far. Hopefully we can do the job.
And that was a good race until McCullough apparently lost a blower belt.
Is that what happened? I didn't know. I knew it would be tough no matter what. At least we got through there without smoking the tires this time, so that helps out.
You're in a 542. Conservative or slower than you expected?
No, I would like to have seen a 36 or a 7 or something, but, you know, Dale will have a reason for it when I get back and look at the computer tape.
Boy, the computer ever more important in this kind of competition. Don Garlitz, what does your computer say about this particular pairing?
Well, it looks to me like the snake has definitely got an advantage. He's got the near lane, which is the one that everyone's been picking with lane choice. They've got Oswald over in the far lane, supposedly the marginal lane. We'll just have to see what happens.
Well, from what I've seen, I don't believe there is a marginal lane, and I don't think Mark Oswald believes that either. He's going to hammer his probe as hard as he can. Likewise, Don Prudhomme in the near lane in the Pontiac Firebird, two of the best in the business. They're off. It's another great race. It is Mark Oswald by a fender at 5:41 to Prudhomme. Quicker. 5:39, so Oswald really helped out that team. Brock is with his crew chief back at the starting line, Leonard Hughes. Brock?
Well, Leonard, everybody was suspicious of the right lane, but you and Bernstein both took it and were winners.
I think both of us in the previous round softened it up, though, because we both shook and spun real hard the last round, so we both softened up a little bit, which got us down there.
Well, good work. Congratulations.
Thank you.
See you in the final.
Well, Leonard, it's your driver that got you that wind light. What a terrific funny car matchup, Don Garland.
Yeah, and the snake is really going to be mad at himself on that one because he lost it right on the starting line. But I do have to inject this in there. They could have had that clutch set so soft to keep it from smoking the tires that it caused the car to be a little down on reaction time. Look at the black mark following the snake's car, but he just can't catch Oswald.
What a race. The snake really hooked up on the edge of smoking the tires. Here's the funny car final. Kenny Bernstein versus Mark Oswald. Oswald with lane choice. And Steve is with him.
You know, I have a feeling when he went to the starting line that this man, Mark Oswald, knew the burden of victory was on him. You left on time, you ran a 41, you beat his quicker 39. Wow.
Yeah, you know, it was a good race. I was ahead of him and out there in the middle. The front end got off the ground and danced over the center line. I had to gather it back, and he got back around me, and it come back around him again. It was a little seesaw. You know, snake's always tough. You know, we're proud to put the probe in front of me.
Everybody having clutch problems. It's still a bit of a black art. Guesswork in a lot of ways.
Well, yeah, it is. You know, a few years ago, everybody was slipping the clutch so much it wasn't that critical. They didn't realize it, and then as they found where the performance was, it just got to be touchier and touchier.
In the finals.
Thank you.
Mark Oswald, he still has a shot at the Winston Championship with performance like this.
What a great matchup it's going to be. Oswald versus Bernstein. As we watch one of Gary Ormsby's crewmen working on the critical component here at Memphis, the clutch. Coming up, Pro Stock semifinals. Stay with us.
Unlike most motorsports, the fans are invited into the pits at NHRA Championship Drag Racing, including our Memphis event today. And when you're there, maybe Goodyear will be nice enough to give you an old tire, and the racers will be nice enough to autograph it. You can take it home and slap a piece of glass on it and have yourself a first-rate little coffee table. Here's Larry Morgan as we go in to the semifinals of Pro Stock. Morgan in his Oldsmobile up against yet another Oldsmobile, the highly vaunted Warren Johnson.
Larry Morgan comes into this round a definite advantage over Warren Johnson in the performance department, but don't ever count out the cagey old veteran.
In fact, it's Johnson away first. In fact, it's Johnson in front, and it's Johnson defeating Larry Morgan. A 7:39 to Morgan's quicker 7:35. Warren Johnson is really going to enjoy that. He won that race, not the Oldsmobile.
Another fine example of what happens when you look at your competition and you see that they have come into the round with a better ET. You just got to get off the starting line ahead of them, and get off ahead is exactly what Warren Johnson did, and it won the race for him.
Well, Don, they always talk about Pro Stock competition being close, but could anybody call this one without electronic help? No way.
Now that's how you drive a Pro Stock car. You see, you leave first. The other guy runs quicker, but you beat him with a 39.
Well, it's not real easy. It takes a little while to get the hang of this thing, but I think we're getting the hang of it, Steve. I think it's coming around.
Great shot.
Thank you very much.
Well, one of the closest Pro Stock races in recent memory, but we may even have a more interesting matchup right now. That, of course, is the champion of champions in Pro Stock competition, Bob Glidden. He's going against the only Chrysler product in big-time Pro Stock competition. That is Darrell Alderman's Dodge Pro Stocker, and earlier, Steve filed this report.
It's about time we take a close-up look at the first Dodge Pro Stocker to win an NHRA title since 1979. Darrell Alderman drove it to victory at the Gator Nationals earlier this year. You say, got to be one of those big, strong Hemis, right? Wrong. Hemis, first of all, love superchargers, and they love nitromethane. They're not big, normally aspirated on gasoline. This is the old 440-style Chrysler motor that dates back, to the mid-1960s. It was in trucks and it was in cars, but it had been long forgotten as really a performance engine, but not by the guys at Wayne County Speed Shop. They had the block recast by Chrysler to thicken the cylinder walls so they could bore them out. They had the bottom end increased in strength so they could put a stroker crankshaft to get it out to 500 cubic inches. Now, even the cylinder heads are basic Chrysler B1 cast in aluminum by Brodex. What they have done internally to the cylinder heads, well, they're not about to tell. Nor can we see the manifold design, much like Bob Glidden and Warren Johnson. They disguised that. And now they went through untold number of motors in development on the dyno. They traveled the entire circuit last year and never qualified for a single event. But they never gave up. And victory came at the Gators, much to the delight of Mopar drag race fans across the country.
And interestingly enough, Don Garlitz, it was the man he faces right now, Bob Glidden, who he beat at the Gators. So I would imagine that Glidden is taking Alderman very seriously.
He's showing him a lot more respect than he was at Gainesville as we see Bob Glidden getting ready to go with the in-car camera.
Now, you saw his right leg go down on the throttle, his left leg come off the clutch, his hands moving, and this time urged on by his son Rusty and Bob Glidden, a clear victor. Identical reaction times. Alderman did not enjoy a whole shot as he did that day in Florida.
So, yet again, this pair of arch rivals will face off in the Pro Stock final. Warren Johnson versus Bob Glidden. Bob Glidden with a lane choice in his Ford Pro.
Back in the pits, Bernstein fuels his own car, getting ready for the final with Oswald.
And that's going to be a great one. But now let's go to Steve with a man who just drove his way into the Pro Stock final.
Well, that sets up a tremendous Pro Stock final. The two old warriors, Bob Glidden and Warren Johnson, not the best of friends. One driving for Ford, one driving for Oldsmobile. It's a dandy.
It'll be a great race. Steve, you know, one thing you hit on, I guess you could say we're not the best of friends, but we're both competitors. That's why we're all out here, and it'll be a great race.
Be careful. Warren is cutting tremendous lights today.
You know, he always does when he so does everyone when they race me, so I expect that. So that'll be no surprise.
You can also expect that Bob Glidden will be ready with his car for the Pro Stock final as Eddie Hill's crew gets ready for the Top Fuel final. Stay with us.
It's time for the finals in all three pro categories. Here at the NHRA AutoZone Castrol GTX Mid-South Nationals, I'm Steve Evans along with Brock Yates and Big Daddy Don Garlett. The clutch work continues on the Mark Oswald car as they get ready for the funny car final. But first of all, it's time for one that, well, has the fans' interest in ours as well. You see, Warren Johnson pretty consistently considers the Bob Glidden car maybe not be totally legal. The NHRA tech officials pretty consistently say that it is. So there really is where that little feud lies.
And sometimes, you know, Steve, that's not real good because you get your mind on worrying about the other cars being illegal when in fact you should be worrying about how to make your own car go fast.
In fact, Bob Glidden was quoted as saying that very thing in the Memphis papers this weekend. But Brock, you know, for Warren Johnson, how frustrating it must be. That number 2 in the upper corner of the windshield, that's all he seems to do in this category. It's going to be just to beat your mind to death.
Well, it's beating up an awful lot of other guys too, because Bob Glidden right now going for the 71st major NHRA title in his career. So he's put a lot of guys in the dust, including Warren Johnson.
I'll tell you, sometimes, if you go back in those Pro Stock pits, they're racing for that number 2.
Absolutely, yeah. First in class. Okay, Bob Glidden, our camera is on board, as you just saw. And Warren Johnson knows Glidden is not unbeatable. After all, the Dodge did it in Gainesville, but he's the only one so far to drop the probe in the final rounds. Glidden had the best early season start of his entire career. Warren Johnson hopes to put a stop to that. They leave right together. Glidden driving his own race. Rusty urging him on. You saw a little disappointment on the Warren Johnson crewman. Well, for good reason. Warren only ran a 7:37 to Bob's winning 7.28. Brock Yates is with Bob's wife at the line.
Well, Eddie Glidden, number 71. How does that feel? The thrill continues, right?
Yes, it does, and I'm nervous.
You were concerned about this one, I would imagine.
Certainly. Warren is one of the toughest competitors out here, and he's an excellent driver.
It was plenty close. Were you nervous all the way, or did you figure he had it when you saw him at half-track?
Well, looking through the camera, I can't really tell, but it looked really close to me through the camera, and I wasn't sure until after I shut the camera off.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So there's joy in Whiteland, Indiana on this day. Let's take one more look. Big Daddy, what do you see off the mark?
Well, very good start. Both cars leave the line almost together. However, Warren Johnson took a very slight starting line advantage. And I might add, that's the only advantage he ever had, because from that point on, it was Glidden's steady march to the finish line. A little power on the top end, because 189 takes a lot more horsepower than 181 miles an hour. Steve?
You know, Warren Johnson must feel like one of those racing greyhounds that chases the electric rabbit all its life and never catches it. Well, Warren Johnson didn't catch this rabbit, Bob Glidden, one more time. 7:28, 189.
Steve, you know, Warren knows, and we know, all of the guys that's been around a long time know that when you get on a roll, you can't do anything wrong. You come out on Sunday morning, the next thing you know, you're in the winner's circle. And that's kind of the way it's been with us here lately. We've gotten the right brakes, and Warren hasn't. You know, I think there was a difference for the Pro Stock cars from one lane to the other. Warren's car seemed to move on me a little bit, and when he hit the rough place, the probe took over. And, you know, he's doing a heck of a job, really.
You all are. Your 71st victory.
Yeah, you know, that's a great victory. More so than being the 71st victory, the fact that we ran Bruce the first round. Bruce was second in the Winston points. Everyone who was right up there except Warren went out early. So we've got at least at this point, a fairly good lead in the Winston chase.
Our best to the family.
Thank you very much.
Bob Glidden, is a 10th Winston title possible? I'll say.
Not only that, Steve, if he keeps going the way he is right now, he could clinch the title by mid-season, perhaps. But right now, it's Top Fuel and funny car action coming up here at Memphis Motorsports Park. So stay with us.
Only the funny car and Top Fuel finals remain here at the NHRA AutoZone Castrol GTX Mid-South Nationals. And there is the most feared funny car in all the land. Kenny Bernstein in his Buick Riata bodied machine. He has set the national record and backed it up at 5:25. He is cutting Bruce Larson's points lead round by round. Larson going out in the initial round today. And here, there is problems with Mark Oswald's car. You can see the spray out of the pipes. The engine is only running on one side. What do you think, Don Garlett?
That's a strange situation, and I don't know what would cause it, because it couldn't be one mag went out, because each mag fires into both cylinders.
Well, we'll try to find out mechanically what's happened, but as far as our story is concerned, that means it is a 5-run for Kenny Bernstein. He will win this title unopposed in the final.
What a shame, too, because both cars came into this round with a 541 and a 542. It should have been a really good race.
Now, we just saw some tire smoke on the dry burnout of Kenny Bernstein. Mark Oswald is climbing out of the car. When these two drivers get together, they always call it in fun the battle of the big red cars. Well, that battle will not take place here at Memphis this afternoon. It'll be Bernstein all by himself. Let's go to Brock with crew chief Leonard Hughes.
Leonard clearly disappointed, but what was the problem?
I think the camshaft broke.
Oh, jeez.
Well, that is a very rare occurrence in championship drag racing. The camshaft, one of the most reliable parts in these engines. In fact, sometimes they'll last literally for years and years. Let's go back to Brock.
Clearly disappointed, Mark Oswald. Obviously, a terrible disappointment. Mark, Leonard Hughes told me he thinks a broken camshaft.
Yeah, it looks that way. I mean, one whole side of the motor just never started.
That's terrible. We're awfully sorry you're out. I'm sure you were optimistic about the race.
Oh, yeah, we felt good. You know, we thought we could improve, but, you know, that's the break.
I know. I guess that's motor racing, though. We're sorry you're out and sorry it ended like this.
Thanks.
A big, bad break for the Candies and Hughes team. A good break for Bernstein. And Mark Oswald will really feel bad now because Bernstein blazed the tires right off the starting line. It could have been Mark's win.
Yeah, look at the look on his face. I mean, he is really upset as the big red car just coasts easily down the racetrack to a victory.
So Kenny Bernstein continues to whittle away at Bruce Larson's points lead. In fact, it is down now to under 300 points for Larson. Let's go back down to the starting line where Brock Yates has one very happy crew chief.
Dale Armstrong, to talk about muddling through, but it worked out for you, right? Some days.
Talking to you again. Yeah, we did. I was just going to send him right after that wet burnout, seeing that Mark had trouble, but he wanted to do a dry burnout. And then the motor went up just as he staged, so something malfunctioned, but we were lucky.
Well, some days you'll take it any way you get it, right?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Whatever works.
Thank you.
Well, especially when you've also muddled your way to a new NHRA national record of 5.25 seconds. Okay, another guy who's kind of muddled his way into the final with the scoop being attached is Eddie Hill. He's had a whole lot of luck going up against the guy who hasn't needed any, Gary Ormsby.
Fact of the matter, Eddie Hill has only made one real good run at this entire event, and that was in the previous round against Dick LaHaye. But that was a good run, 5:08. He's going to need that against Ormsby this time.
And don't forget, Don, that Gary has lane choice, and he has taken that far lane, the one that an awful lot of guys have said they didn't like. So we'll see. But before that, let's go to Steve with the funny car champion.
Well, Kenny, I know your only disappointment on this day is not being able to lay down a record for the fans, even though it was a single.
Well, there's no question. You know, Dale looked at me up there when he saw they were broken. He said, you want to go on, you know, instead of the dry? And I went, no, let's give them the right deal and see what we can do. And it'd been nice if the Budweiser Quaker say we could have gone down through there, but a win's a win, Steve, and it's a tough one. I feel sorry for Mark Oswald and Candies and Hughes and Motorcraft.
I know he has to really feel sick when he saw your tires smoke and he had a broken camshaft.
Well, sure, it always does, you know, when you see your competitor go up in smoke and you know you could have won the race. But
You've been there.
I've been there before, and that's part of racing. That's going to be that way from now on. But we'll take it today. We'll take the world record with us, and we'll gain some points on Larson, and we'll see you the next trip out.
What brought the team around?
Well, I think really this weekend Dale just got his hands on the clutch pretty good. Now, this last run didn't show that, obviously. We stepped on it because we thought we'd have to against Oswald. Thank goodness he was broken. But I think the clutch side of it, Dale learned a lot in the last 2 weeks.
What a pair, Armstrong and Bernstein. Funny car champions here. Now, Don Garlett, we've got 2 more race cars left. What do you think?
We're going to have one fine Top Fuel final. We got two evenly matched cars. Each car has the lane that they want. And look at that happy crew for Bernstein. This is their first win this year, and they're celebrating. And I don't blame them.
Pretty rare that this team has gone this many races without a victory, so they've got to be happy. As we watch Eddie Hill backing up, here's his crew chief, Fuzzy Carter, looking on intently. They've had kind of an up-and-down weekend, and actually they've gone back to the basics. Earlier, Steve had a look.
A professional racer like Eddie Hill runs the best parts possible, right? Well, usually does. But when they get down on their luck a bit, a superstition here, go back to old number 19. This aluminum block is the 19th ever produced by the JP1 company. It's an old motor that they bought back in 1986 from Gene Snow. It was used then. It's been blown up. It's been patched up. It was the only surviving part of the incredible flip-over backward crash at the Winter Nationals. And when things weren't going well yesterday, they plugged old number 19 back into the car, and guess what? They're going into the final round. This engine has even run 291 miles per hour. I don't know why they don't run it all the time, and I'll bet Gene Snow wishes he had it back.
I would imagine so. As we look over Eddie Hill's shoulder, that's his lovely wife, Ursi, guiding him into the staging light, Steve.
I think the only way that you're going to beat Gary Ormsby on this day is to take a shot at it. Pump the car up and go for the fours. Ormsby has had such consistency. The engine I talked about, old number 19, rumbling behind Eddie Hill. Hill releases the brake. He's off. And there goes Gary Ormsby streaking ahead to the victory. Oh, another beautiful 503. 287 miles per hour. Eddie Hill, problem plagued at 558. Here's Brock.
Lee Baird, obviously hard-fought day all day, but turned out very well, I would imagine.
Well, it's like any other race. If you really work hard and you put your mind to it and you're determined and you have a lot of people supporting you, nothing but success can happen to you.
Well, you came in here, set quick time, and just seemed to roll all the way. Was there any part in the day that you got a little shaky?
We were shaky every single round, I'll tell you, but it really feels good, and it's really sweet that we won this race that our sponsor stepped up and put up some extra money for.
Congratulations again, Lee.
Thank you, Brock.
Yeah, you can't do any better than winning your sponsor's own car race, as Lee Pearson and Gary Ormsby well know. Don, here's how they won it.
It was won at the starting line. Look at that awesome throttle device. Put Ormsby right out in front of Eddie Hill. And then, of course, he took his shot. He put the power into it and smoked the tires.
And that was the end of Eddie Hill, Don. But not so with Gary Ormsby. He's the winner.
3 out of the first 5 races now belong to Gary Ormsby. Unbelievable.
Well, thank you, Steve. I have to give credit to my crew. You know, the knowledge I've got of running one of these cars you could put in a thimble. So these guys have done it for me again, and it's all what can I say?
All right, you took the lane that no one favored all day long. Was it after watching Bernstein smoke the tires, or what?
No, in fact, Lee asked me if he wanted to change lanes, and I said no, because I didn't think there was anything wrong with the lane. We made 2 good runs down that lane, and I kind of like to stay in that lane.
A 503.
Yeah, it felt real good. I didn't know what it ran, but it felt awful good, that run.
Congratulations again. You now have a bigger lead in the Winston points chase.
Well, you got to get it when you can, because, this winning is fleeting, so you got to stay with it while you're winning.
All right, we'll see you at the next event. Gary Ormsby, what a season.
And what a wild afternoon of racing here at the Mid-South Nationals in Memphis. For Big Daddy Don Garlitz, Steve Evans, I'm Brock Yates. Thanks for joining us.
The executive producer for American Sports Cavalcade is Harvey M. Palish. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by the Style Auto World Championship Team. The nation's premier source of fast lane fashions, Style Auto, the champion's choice for the style of your life. And by this special offer from Diamond P.
Just incredible. For 6 award-winning seasons on American Sports Cavalcade, we've shared the excitement as fearless competitors push too far. Yet, miraculously, we've watched them walk away. Diamond P has now captured all this excitement on a spectacular new home video called And They Walked Away. The mayhem of motocross, the tumbles of sprint cars, the spins of stock cars, 60 minutes of breathtaking footage. For your copy, call 1-800-453-9300 or send a check or money order to this address. Just $24.95 plus $3.50 shipping and handling. Visa and MasterCard accepted. Call 1-800-453-9300 now.
The American Sports Cavalcade is a presentation of Diamond B Sports.